Spider-Man Homecoming had plenty of Easter eggs and winks, but what will that mean for the sequel? I'm Danielle Radford, and this is Screen Junkies News.
Today's episode is presented by T-Mobile, America's best unlimited network.
Spider-Man Homecoming is a bona fide hit, and a sequel was assured from the jump. So what can we expect from the wall crawler's next big outing? Who will he fight? Who will he fall in love with? And what about that reveal at the end? The producers, writers, and actors have all had their say, and we're here now to break it down. Here's your spoiler warning, because Roth Cornett and I are swinging headlong into dem spoilers. Hello, Roth.
I'm so happy to be sitting with you right now.
I know, it's so much fun. So, we'll start with one of the big ones. There were several reveals in this movie. What do you think? Is Michelle MJ?
Apparently not.
Yeah, right?
So Michelle is MJ, meaning that people call her MJ, but Kevin Feige has come out and said that she is not that MJ. She's not Mary Jane, which was actually something we shot our reviews early, so we didn't know that yet.
Oh,
So that's actually an interesting twist. What do you think?
I think it's interesting. For me, it's one of those things where it's like, so he has this, what he told Den of Geek was, quote, in setting up, this will be a very different thing. She's not Mary Jane Watson. That's not who the character is. But giving her the initials that remind you of that dynamic certainly is intriguing about what could go forward. Now, I understand that.
Right.
But when you introduce a character who's like clearly like a possible romantic person for Peter.
Right.
And then you call her MJ, of course we're going to think it's MJ. It's like if we were watching like, you know, a Batman movie and all of a sudden there's like a guy and there's like, oh, that guy who walks around with the smiling fish, he's a real Joker.
Yeah.
And then later they were like,
but it's not the Joker.
It's not the Joker. A smiling fish guy is a completely new character that we made up.
He jokesies, but he's not the Joker.
He's not the Joker, but he does love crack 'em ups.
Yeah.
So that would be, so while I do understand that they wanted to give that little wink and a nod, of course they knew we were all going to think that she was MJ, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because there was speculation that she was more likening to a character named Michelle, right? Mm-hmm. So that she was actually, so maybe it's an amalgam, you know?
Could be.
Because this isn't she doesn't behave like Mary Jane. So and what we were saying was either she's going to have some drastic change and take down her hair and suddenly we'll realize she is in fact all that.
That's true. She could straight up Ali Sheedy.
She could. Well, I loved that she was hearkening to Ali Sheedy because Ali Sheedy's the best part of the breakfast. I don't know. Debatable. But I actually loved that she was hearkening to that, and I sort of enjoyed that. And so I don't want her to so drastically change. It's fine. Certainly you want to see characters evolve.
Absolutely,
you know?
yeah.
But Mary Jane's a very different character. So I was curious about that. So look, if you're a fan and you're like, oh, MJ, I get that this is a very important relationship to him, but it's not that relationship done again. Mm-hmm. I kind of get it. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely, I get it. It is one of those things where it's like, if you put in MJ, you know we're going to think it's MJ. Yeah. But on the other hand, it is a way, although for me, it was just the fact that they cast Zendaya. I was like, cast Zendaya and not have her make out with Tom Holland at some point.
Yeah, well, no, they'll definitely be making up. And this is the thing, is that they're setting up so many different things currently. Mm-hmm. But this one, clearly they're setting up for him to be the next love interest, for her to be the next love interest in Homecoming 2 or whatever. I don't know if that's what they're going to call it.
They wind up calling it.
She is so gorgeous.
She's so good.
I just don't want it to be one of those things where suddenly it's a slightly different look and we realize she is, because it's not hidden currently.
Yeah, she's currently very pretty.
And I don't know that we needed that reveal in order for the relationship to work, but I think that all they're doing is teasing you that things are going to go forward.
Yeah.
She is going to play a bigger role going forward, and she's going to be a very important part of his life.
Well, speaking of people playing bigger or different roles from what we thought, so that reveal at the end, Aunt May walks in,
dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 sees that Peter is in the spider suit, finds out Peter is Spider-Man. What did you think about that?
Well, I thought many things. You know what? Actually, I like it. And the reason is I feel like it's bridging the gap between what the MCU has done, where secret identities are really not a thing. And it's just sort of, we know who they are. We know who the heroes are. The world knows about them. It is a thing that is discussed. And they even play with that in this movie with the robbers and at the ATM.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said ATM that way, but apparently that's...
At the ATM.
At the ATM. Off to the ATM to rob. So I think it's sort of bridging that gap where for me, when Spider-Man was introduced, I thought that's the one that's actually got to maintain his secret identity because he's so young. He's got to be able to have a childhood, and B, like, it's just dangerous for him.
Yes.
He's not fully ready to be an Avenger, and even by the movie he's like an Avenger light.
Yes.
Avenger-esque.
Well, and that's something that writer Jonathan Goldstein told The Hollywood Reporter, quote, "It just sort of diminishes what is often the most trivial part of superhero worlds, which is finding your secret. It takes the emphasis off that, lets her become part of what's really his life, so it's not cloak and dagger stuff. It's how does he best use these powers to help the world, help himself and his family, and act responsibly." So I think you're right. It does make it more imperative that he's got to get good quick because he's got to protect Aunt May.
Yeah. And here's the thing is, how is she going to respond? So that's going to create some more tension in their relationship moving forward, because I think that also it creates a new opportunity to deepen their relationship. Because now it's like he's having this secret life and he's just sort of, which all teenagers do, frankly, and they're sneaking around, the
secret life of the American spider teenage.
Yeah. But I mean, it's another way in which, like, he's sort of a metaphor for all teenagers.
Absolutely.
We're all sneaking around. You were sneaking around, or you are sneaking around now. Hopefully being safe about it, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do not endorse sneaking. But I will say that this gives them her an opportunity to play a bigger role in his life, and the push-pull between her desire and the family's desire to do good in the world and to do what you can versus her desire to keep him safe and allow him to grow up. That's a huge metaphor for a parent and a child anyway, right?
Absolutely. And there is something Marissa
Psychology
Tomei,
today.
Ooh. Hello, Screen Junkie Psychology. So Marissa Tomei talked about with the Huffington Post that there was a deleted scene where something happened. There was a little girl, needed help. Aunt May goes and helps out, and Peter kind of sees this. So it does lay the groundwork for a more heroic Aunt May. And if you've ever read the J. Michael Straczynski, I assume I'm pronouncing that right. I didn't have nerd friends for a long time, so I've learned how to pronounce things in my head.
I did that. I was just talking about that today. Like, reading Game of Thrones, I learned how to pronounce things, and it was apparently incorrect.
Very, very wrong. But that's
brain.
That's where it lives forever. Yeah. So there's a great, great book in the J. Michael Straczynski run. Aunt May does find out that Peter is Spider-Man. And Aunt May in the books hated Spider-Man, thought he was creepy. Yeah. And you get this great arc of her dealing with it and the fact that she loves her nephew. She has to take care of her nephew. And there was one, it's a spoiler for like a 15-year-old comic or something like that, where he's trying to get his web shooters in through Homeland Security. And she is like, oh no, it's an old lady downstairs medical device.
Oh wow.
And that's how they get it in. So there are like opportunities for these really fun moments for Aunt May to now also be there for Peter as Spider-Man.
Yeah, and it's we talked about this a little bit previously, how Tony has stepped in to be like the more complicated adult mentor, Uncle Ben figure. Although in this movie they kind of had Cap in the background being like, the straight up do-gooder moral person. Yes. But Tony's the more complicated figure. So it's interesting to think of Aunt May as the figure that comes in and is grounded in that way and is the one that's guiding him in terms of morality, but from a real human level, because Tony's larger than life.
Yeah. Tony is
even just Tony, not even Iron Man.
Yeah, Tony by himself is the biggest celebrity in the world.
He's crazy rich. He grew up that way. Like, he's not lived a normal life, which was another thing that I thought was fun that they were playing with in this film. So I think it creates an opportunity for him to have that influence in the next film.
Oh, that's super exciting. And so there were so many people complained because at first when you heard that there were going to be more than one villain, folks got scared.
Yeah.
Because they, Spider-Man 3 and don't add too many. But it actually wound up possibly setting up a lot of very interesting things. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this too, where they're setting up the next Spider-Man solo film, they're setting up his connections to the MCU through Tony and Happy. We see Pepper at the end. There's this idea that he's kind of an Avenger, but he's still going to be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which I thought really worked beautifully with the Vulture storyline.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? And he's taking that perspective of like, let's protect like the small guy too, and not just think like the gods. So they're setting that up, but they're also setting up this villain universe. And it's unclear currently how many of the characters that they're setting up in terms of the villains will play out in that separate universe or will be part of the next Spider-Man film. Certainly, I don't think they'll be part of the MCU at large.
Right.
The Disney MCU.
Right. Which is great because you had Scorpion got teased in this.
By the way, love him.
Love him.
Yes.
Every single villain that they picked out, all of these actors could be a Spider-Man villain. Oh,
yeah, easily.
They could be a credible Spider-Man villain. Obviously, Michael Keaton nailed it. But any of these guys, I would feel confident to go off and be a villain. Or if they're deciding that they want to build up to something else, like if Sony does want to do a Sinister Six.
Yeah. You got Vulture set up. You certainly have Scorpion, Prowler, who... villain, anti-hero, sort of like, so they are setting up several different things. What's your take? How would you like to see them used? Would you like to see them used in the next Spider-Man movie or in a separate Sinister Six?
That's really tough because either way...
Hard questions.
Either way, it would be really fun for all of them to be in jail and break out together.
Yeah.
Just because I would love to see a jail breakout movie with a bunch of the villains, have them all break out of or the raft or whatever version of it that they're in this version.
And the best thing is that you still have Michael Keaton.
Yes.
And I felt like I loved what he did, but I wanted to see so much more of it, which is the only thing, not the only thing, but is a thing that can make me excited about that kind of a film where it was just like just a Sinister Six, because if Michael Keaton's at the head of that, I'm excited.
Absolutely. And it's a Michael Keaton who he's a villain, but he's doing it for his family.
Yeah.
And I'm always going to love a villain who's like, I'm not just a bad guy. I'm not just out for greed. I've got to take care of my family. And he does still have a moral center and a moral code. And so that could be a really interesting thing going into a Sinister Six, where it's not just a bunch of bad guys looting and being crazy. You still have someone who's like, no, like at the end of this, I still got to go home to, my wife and kid. Like, that's what we've got to do.
And there's different versions of the Sinister Six that they could play with, but here's the people that they're setting up in this film.
That'd be great.
They may or may not return. But these are great actors that they cast.
These are great. I would also, of course, I would love to see a Craven. I would love to see Chameleon, or not so much a Mysterio, just because I don't know. I want to see Mysterio in an MCU movie. I don't think I want to see him in a Sony one.
Well, it's like Kevin Feige said, I mean, there's 2 million in the Rogues Gallery to choose from, so they just keep pulling them out.
Which is so great. And so aside from, we've got the villains, we've got love story, we've got family issues. What else did we see that this set up right before the end?
I mean, I think it's set up just in broad terms really well. His dynamic in high school, those relationships that I think are going to continue to evolve. He's obviously they established very well the relationship with Ned.
Yes. Loved Ned.
There's more that we could do in terms of Flash, because I'm also, what you don't know is that I'm currently writing the script.
Queen of Hollywood.
Exactly. Queen of Hollywood, I wish. With Flash Thompson, there's a million different places to go with these characters. I love that they're going to keep him in high school. I think this is great, this idea of going year to year to year, even though there's going to be so many years in between. When he finally gets to be a senior, it'll be, 39 by then?
Yeah, Spider-Man senior prom or whatever it is we're calling it.
He's so young and he'll still be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like if they stick to focusing on the relationships and the humor, which I thought worked so beautifully in this film, that it doesn't almost matter to me as long as it's a good story.
Yeah, and we know that he's going to be, Kevin Feige said, the person that leads us into the next phase of films.
Which is where it gets tricky, right? Like how many times can Tom Holland play Spider-Man? And I mean this really, because if he's potentially, so if he's got at least 2 more solo movies.
Yes.
Plus he's the new fulcrum of the MCU going forward, right? Plus he's potentially, maybe not, very unclear, like yes or no, attached to the villain universe. It's a lot for him to do.
That is a lot to put on Tom Holland's shoulders.
What else is he ever going to act as?
He'll find out in a decade is when he'll find out what else he can do, because we are sending off. Which one of the things I thought was very nice is that we did get to see Happy, we did get to see Pepper, and for me, you could set it up so that they could continue to come back, even if we don't know if we're going to lose Tony. It seems like we might. But if not, I like that they had that really small moment before everything gets overblown and crazy in the next couple of Avengers films.
Yeah. In any event, I love Tom Holland as this character. I think he is, to date, the very best. I know that people will argue, and that's okay. That's why we have movie fights. I think he's the best at being both, at being Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I love him as this character. So I want to see him do it over and over again. I have to imagine that if he's just peppered in, here and there, it could work for him, but I'd love to see him, I watched him in films before Spider-Man 2, and so I'd love to see him probably be able to stretch out beyond that as well.
He can be our next Hugh Jackman. He'll do this, then he'll go and do a musical, and then he'll go and do something else, and go and do some dancing. So speaking of superheroes, as we often do, tell us about Comic-Con.
We are going to be at Comic-Con. SJ and SJ News is going to be at Comic-Con. We'll be reporting the news from there daily. We will have interviews live from Comic-Con, and sometimes not so live, but you'll still get them. We have a big event at the House of Blues. You guys should check out everything. It'll be on Screen Junkies News right here. It'll also be on the Screen Junkies channel. So we will have lots and lots of Comic-Con coverage. Tell us what you'd like to talk about in the comments below.
Yes, please do, because we have heard, and thank you so much, Roth Cornett, we have heard everything that you think, but now we would like to hear what you all think.
That is everything I think about life.
Everything, all of it combined into one 10-minute video. But let us know what you think in the comments down below. What future villains would you like to see? Would you be excited for a Sinister Six movie? Yes, you would. So make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
This episode was presented by T-Mobile, America's best unlimited network.